Welcome back, everyone, to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960. Well, that was really very interesting listening to a conversation with Taras about living in a southern suburb of Kiev and what it's like with him not under attack, but clearly a lot of his friends in the northern suburbs of Kiev and the rest of his countrymen, particularly in the east, under attack. And so I thought we'd extend this conversation by inviting to our show tonight two Ukrainian Canadian lawyers who are here in Toronto but have family back in Ukraine and are from Ukraine originally. Alessia Naherina and oh my gosh, I've lost your name, Oksana, and I can't remember how to pronounce your last name, Oksana.
Oksana Mirotenko.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Which, ironically, I understand means peace.
The first root mir means mer in Ukrainian, which means peace. Yes.
Unbelievable. So maybe we can start with you, Alessia. Tell me a little bit about your family in Ukraine and who you're in communication with and what they're saying about what's going on.
Yes, thanks for having me back, Brian. Actually, today was a very eventful day for me. Perhaps some of your listeners have seen the news. There was a green corridor opened in Sumy, which is a city that is very near to where I am from in Sumska Oblast. And I have a cousin who is, or I should say was in Sumy. She was one of the people evacuated with the help of the Red Cross. In fact, the bomb that hit Sumy and killed 21 people that was reported in the news today was about 500 meters to a kilometer away from where she was hiding. So it has been a day like no other. I've been in touch with her, tracking her path to a safer city. And as she continues to make a trek across the country towards the west and hopefully out of the country.
And my memory is that your family and maybe this city is in the eastern portion of Ukraine. Is that correct?
It is northeast, 45 kilometers away from the Russian border.
So, I think some people don't realize how large Ukraine is, and it's 40 million people. How long would it take you to cross Ukraine from the northeast to Poland, I presume, is where she's headed?
At this point, the trek for people is very long. It is not even about the size of the country, which also matters, but a trip that would take you 3 hours is taking 8-9 hours. I mean, she went to a nearby city that is not that far away, but I believe the trek took them over 10 hours because they have to, I don't know the situation on the ground, but just from kind of bare details that I've been told, they essentially have to, be very mindful the routes that they take and keep in touch with whoever has the information about the most safe pathway. So these trips are taking very long. I have family or friends or family that have reported driving for 37 hours straight.
37 hours straight. And where are they headed? Is it to Lvov and then on to Poland, or what do you know about their plans?
Yeah, usually the trek is towards the west. It is to Poland, to Moldova. Different people take different routes. As I said, this is the only one family member that I am helping to exit the country that wants to go. The rest are just not physically mobile to be able to make that trek.
And so they're staying in the town. And tell us, if you could, what's it like staying in the town?
Yeah, so most of my family members are in a small town called Buring, also very close to the Russian border. They're fully occupied by the Russian forces. There's no active bombing or any sort of resistance. It's peaceful, if you can call it that, in the sense that they're not being shot at, they're not being bombed. So I keep in touch with them every day, and they're saying, okay, everything is quiet for now. But as you can imagine, it's not an ideal situation to be living in, and they're always on alert for anything that may be of danger.
And I'm sorry, Usanka, is that correct?
That's a nice way. It's like calling me Jeannie. But my name is Oksana, just like Oksana Bayul, who was the figure skater. Remember the Ukrainian figure skater who won Olympics, and yeah, same name.
Okay, I apologize.
No
Oksana Miratenko. Oksana
Correct.
Miratenko.
Perfect.
You're also a lawyer here in Toronto of Ukrainian descent, and I understand you've got family still in the Ukraine.
I do. It's my husband's family. They're in the western part of Ukraine. So the story there is a bit different because they haven't been bombed yet. But hearing the stories of my 12-year-old nephew, making Molotov cocktails with his father to prepare the city for the invasion is very sad. Hearing story that my sister-in-law, who has beginning of multiple sclerosis, she cannot move and she cannot leave, and just physically incapable of leaving the country, and simply they just don't want to leave their home. They want to stay home. They say it's our motherland, and if we leave, who is going to defend it? So a lot of people making very conscious decision to stay for now, again, because they still haven't been bombed. It's very eerie situation. We try to talk to them every day. My mother-in-law, for example, just recently had COVID when this whole thing started. People forget about that illness that's it was pandemic and still is everywhere, and she couldn't even go and stay with her family because of her of COVID. So she had to hide during the sirens in the bathroom, under the shelves. She was scared. We constantly were on the phone with her when the sirens were going, because she just didn't have a clue when they will be bombed. They're receiving many refugees right now, and just living in this every day is a blessing, basically. There are a lot of very horrifying stories of people. You ask how many days it takes to make it to the border. I have friends who try to make it from Kiev, and they are saying it's 5 days, sometimes 6 days to make it, whereas the trip before was just a couple of hours. The problem is, unfortunately, in some of the roads where the territory is occupied, people are shot at, and it's something you don't hear in the news here. Women are raped. It's absolutely unacceptable. And again, it's something that doesn't get to the news. And they basically saying, I listened to the interview of CNN journalist with Mr. Lavrov, and he said it's just the collateral damage of the war, just like that. And that just makes you really sad being here, because we do so much, like Alessia, like so many Ukrainian Canadians, and even Canadians here trying to help. I had friends calling me when this whole thing started saying, how can we help? And people are really wanting to help, but we feel very helpless. We do make donations. We do go on demonstrations. We try to talk on TV shows, radio shows. But the main message, I think, is that the world, the humanity has to wake up and literally say, what's going on? Yes, there are agreements written that should be followed, such as Budapest Memorandum, and they are not followed. There are rules that NATO has to follow, and we understand them. But, there is such thing as exceptions to the rules. We have painful, lessons from First World War, from Second World War, where help came way too late. And we had so many people suffering, dying, and we always said we will never forget. And where we are today, again, at the same point.
Oksana, what do you think the West, what should NATO do?
We are all asking for no-fly zone. As a lawyer, I understand. I am not the expert. I understand the reason why they cannot maybe do it now, but there's other alternatives. From what I understand, there are other ways to defend sky without this classical way. So they don't have to shoot at the pilots. They can cover the sky in other ways. There is apparently ways of doing it through different devices. So at least partially help, and help as soon as possible. What worries me the most, I think, and we talked with Alessia about it, that the Russian invaders are taking, hostage these nuclear power plants. This is a humanitarian disaster. This is a terrorism. It has to be stopped. We don't have to wait until, everybody thinks of this button that has to be pushed and the weapon will just fly. They're already there. They're already occupying nuclear power plants. And if the work of the plant can be interrupted, even if it was an accident, or, if it was done on purpose, we will all suffer, not just Ukraine, Europe, the whole world. And we have to stop this. I'm looking at my little children, looking at them, and I don't know what will happen tomorrow. I'm taking it very seriously, and everybody should. Like, I'm talking to all my neighbors, all friends that I have, and I'm asking them, please talk to your members of parliament, please write letters to White House. I had a friend who called the White House, and she's demanded to, honor the terms of the Budapest Memorandum. We all can
tell us if you could, Oksana, what is the Budapest Memorandum?
So when Ukraine gave up their nuclear weapons, there were 3 signatories, US, UK, and Russia, who said that they will protect Ukraine in case of threat to the country. And what do we have now? Russia, who signed on it, is the one invading us, and countries such as US and UK are, just don't even talk about it. I read an article where they said maybe we should ask people who signed this memorandum, where are they now? Why we are not hearing from them? And as our president, Mr. Zelensky, said many times, how many children have to die? How many people have to suffer? We are in 21st century. We are in the middle of Europe. It's just unprecedented. And what scares me, nobody knows what goes on in the head of this madman. I'm sorry to say that, but it's true. And we cannot just keep watching Ukraine being slaughtered. I'm sorry. This is just my feeling. It's my country, and I am prepared to fight to the end. So, I'm taking it very seriously and very passionately. And I just cannot watch and hear the stories I hear every day. And people are calling me from Kyiv, from Zhytomyr, where my grandfather is from Lviv. And they said, do you know anything? Can you tell us what's going on? Can you guys help us? What are you doing? And what is the answer? Is that enough what we are doing here? I don't think so. That's just my opinion.
So last week, Fiona Hill, who is one of the experts on Ukraine and Russia, formerly in the State Department in the United States, said that World War III started in 2014 when the West didn't respond to the invasion and the annexation of Crimea. Was that a mistake?
Her opinion, I agree with her opinion. It's absolutely true. I think it was just, Mr. Putin was probably trying to see what would happen, and he just got that part of Ukraine very easily. And then just, the events that we have today is continuation of that, whatever plan he had. Who knows what he's thinking now and what he was thinking at that time. I cannot comment, but I think, yes, it just went too easily from what I can, see. So,
Alessia, part of the pretext that Putin argues for this invasion is that the Russian-speaking people in eastern Ukraine, where you're from, were mistreated. He called it a genocide. He called it the denazification of Ukraine. Tell me, how are Russian-speaking people in Eastern Ukraine treated?
Well, obviously, I don't need to tell you that all of that is ludicrous speak. It's absolutely not true. Where I'm from, in fact, the small towns all speak Ukrainian, even though we're on the east. My husband was an elections observer with the Canadian government in Luhansk and the Luhansk Oblast. None of that. This was in 2012. Everything that Putin is saying are absolute lies. It's incredible how he has brainwashed his people to believe all of this. I just cannot fathom it. But having grown up in the Soviet Union, I know what it's like not to know any better, where the information that you receive, and now it's changed because it's the internet and it's not no longer just the state media feeding you information that they want you to know and understand. But the Soviet Union used these tactics in the past where, it was the world received certain information about what was happening inside Ukraine or inside Soviet Union countries, and the complete opposite was happening, right? So this is nothing new. The Russian people just need to wake up. I mean, I still see on the news people being interviewed and saying that we absolutely are for the war 100% or 200%. But I do note they say that with a certain fear in their voice. The population in Russia, I mean, you've seen anyone that goes to protest gets arrested. There is no freedom of speech of any kind. And, there's some people that are arguing that, look, this was years in the making, right? If there's a certain need to challenge the government that you elect on a continuous basis to make sure that that power that you give to the government that you elect stays in check. And if you do not do that for a lengthy period of time, you lose your power as a people. And I don't think they've lost their power as a people, but I think they believe that they've lost their power as a people, that their voices don't matter, that they can't change the current state, or whoever's in power, that they can't choose somebody else to lead their country. And I think that's something that really needs to shift. That mindset, that way of thinking needs to transform, but it's going to take time, unfortunately, and time is something that we do not have.
These sanctions will start to really hurt the regular people and the ordinary people in Russia. Do you think that'll make a difference?
Sanctions are meant to work as a foreign policy tool, but in the medium to long term. We don't have that time. I mean, I think that, don't get me wrong, we shouldn't get rid of sanctions. They're going to work, but it's not going to work tomorrow when the bombs are being dropped on civilians. And
okay, so what do you think the West, what should NATO do? Do you think a no-fly zone makes sense? Do you think NATO should get actively involved? Do you think we should be transferring MiG fighters from Poland to Ukraine? Tell me what you think should happen.
So I agree with what Oksana said. No-fly zone, there might be, again, the experts will have their opinions, but I think primarily we need to start thinking outside of the box of how to create a safe airspace. Forget about the no-fly zone as a term. Think about creating a safe airspace, because all of this aid that we're collecting, all of these donations, everything that we're working so hard to achieve, we cannot deliver it because there's continuous active fighting. I've been mobilizing efforts to try to deliver aid to the East. And there's one shipping company in Toronto that's currently shipping to Ukraine. And even then, only to Western Ukraine. So you have to essentially have people on the ground that are willing to risk their lives to drive across the country to pick up these packages. And no matter how good your intentions, I collected, medical supplies and clothing for the children in the orphanages. They told me, look, we can grab certain packages, but forget about the baby clothing. We don't have space for that right now. We need to end the war. The priority right now is to end the fighting. All of the aid will thereafter flow, but you cannot focus on the aid solely, because really until the war stops or until there's a ceasefire, you can't get that aid to the people. And in cities like Mariupol, where there's no running water, there's no electricity, where a child just died from dehydration because his mother was killed. Like, these are horror stories. We're on the verge of a significant humanitarian crisis here, and it's not going to be solved with more aid. It's going to be solved by stopping the war.
Oksana, how can we stop the war?
Well, as Alessia said, I think NATO has to wake up, and the whole Western world has to wake up. We are dealing here with a former KGB man whose psychic you cannot predict. I think we are way too gentle. We are way too nice here in the West, because we are, living in Canada since 1988, I know how people are here, and they're wonderful, and Canada and the world's helping, and they're very sympathetic, but it's not time for that anymore. The men who run Russia now, they only understand the power, and you have to show that power. Until they don't see it, they will not do it. They are basically laughing. Yes, sanctions are hurting them, but it's not enough. As Alessia said, it's long term. It's a big, huge country, and they're just laughing at everybody's face. And it really hurts, because people in the West have to wake up, everybody, because tomorrow we might not wake up, because tomorrow the nuclear power plants may explode. And that would be the worst nightmare that I would have. But I think if we don't act now, it will happen, and it will happen very soon. So we have to show the power, and have to show it in a military way, because that's, I think, the only language that Mr. Putin understands. That's my opinion.
What's the old adage about the only way to react to a bully is to stand up to a bully? You can't negotiate, you can't appease, you can't give in to a bully. Otherwise, the bully will just keep doing what he's learned how to do it.
Absolutely. The way I see it, it's like in a schoolyard where Ukraine is a little kid standing up to a bully, and the rest of school is watching and saying, good for you, great. Do you want this? We can help you with giving you, maybe you should have a baseball bat. That will help you. That's what's happening now. That's the way I see it. Instead of whole school standing up to this bully. So the whole world has to stand up to this bully. And now we don't have time. Every hour, every day.
So the quote unquote smart people are saying the reason why we can't get the West and NATO can't get directly involved is because then Putin will use nuclear weapons, and it really will be World War III.
I think it's already World War III. The way he sees it from from what I hear interviews, he says that sanctions are already starting the war. All the aid that we get in military, airplanes, it's already the war in his mind. So it's just a matter of time. I think we are already in the war. That's what I think. And we have to act now, because it will be too late. When he will be already at the NATO border, it will be too late. So I think we cannot wait. We cannot look children and women and elder people and everybody Ukrainian in the eyes now and say every day, we are sorry, we are working on it. We can do it. Yes, we will applaud. We will be so supportive. It's not enough. We have to act. We have to show the strength of the West. It's a very strong alliances, countries, NATO. We have so much power. We just have to use it. That's the only language he understands, and that government of his. That's my opinion.
We're chatting tonight with two Ukrainian Canadian lawyers, Oksana and Alessia. We're going to take a break for some messages and come back with some concluding comments in just a minute. Stay with us, everybody. Welcome back, everyone, to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Sagan and 60. It's a real honor of mine to be chatting tonight with Oksana and Alessia, two lawyers in Toronto. They're Ukrainian Canadian. They both got family currently living in Ukraine, and they've been very passionate in their description of what's going on in Ukraine and what they think the West, what NATO needs to do. I want to ask you in a minute if you've got a message for our listeners, but before I do that, and Oksana, you talked about World War III potentially already starting. I happen to believe that. I think that Crimea and Eastern Ukraine may have been comparable to giving Hitler Austria and Czechoslovakia, and I really wonder whether this is comparable to the invasion of Poland. And the West didn't do anything for almost a year after the invasion of Poland in 1939. And if we had known what was going to come, whether we would have done something before Nazi Germany at the time, could have armed and got ready to attack on the West. And I guess the comparable would be, should we do something now before they attack Poland, before Russia attacks Poland or the Baltic states or Moldova or Romania or some of the other countries that logically, if this works, Putin should be interested in attacking next. But some people have said that the difference was that at the time, the politician in charge was Chamberlain that believed in appeasement. And the difference now is that you've got almost a Churchill in Zelensky. Mm-hmm. And I wonder if the two of you might say something about what you think about Zelensky. I think that the world has become charged to his nightly broadcasts from wherever he is. And the line about I don't need a ride, I need ammunition is sort of a line that you'd expect a Hollywood writer to write in a Arnold Schwarzenegger kind of movie. It's like almost the perfect line. Is he real, or is this just acting?
I can go first. Well, I think he's very real. I remember, watching his shows when he was an actor, and he even came to Toronto, and he's passionate about his work, and it doesn't matter if it was acting at that time or now that he's the president. I believe he's a great leader, especially now, despite, what people were thinking in the past about him. But just that he stays with people. Every day when I call my relatives, they're saying, we are not afraid. We know that our army is strong. Our president is the leader. He is, with us. He didn't leave us. When he talks to, today he talked to, Boris Johnson's government. Every day, all his messages, they are not from the piece of paper. They are from his heart. And he says what I would say, definitely. And he's begging, he's screaming, he is talking, and just, showing the compassion for his countrymen, for his country. So I think he's very real, and I think he will go to history as a great president. And I just hope that the Hollywood movie that always says that US saves people, and there is a happy end, will be the happy end for Ukraine. And it will come really soon, not in a year, but within days. That's just my message.
Alessia?
Yeah, I would tend to agree with Oksana. I think there's been a lot said about the great leadership style of President Zelensky. I think he is a great communicator. And I think he does speak very genuinely, and he does speak in a way that represents the belief of the people, which is that we as a nation, and this has very historical roots as well, we don't surrender. Ukrainians are not a people that surrenders. So we do come to this with full arms. And unfortunately, this is a situation where losing this war for Putin is not an option, and surrendering is not an option for Ukraine. So we have to think very creatively about how to end this war. And I agree with Oksana, it cannot be a year from now. I get very nervous when I hear this war is going to be very long, or it cannot be. The devastation to civilians will just be irreparable, and to also historical structures and all of that, those other things that are very important to the Ukrainian culture and history. So we have to end it now, and creating a safe sky is the way to do it.
Oksana, you've got 25,000 people in the Toronto area listening to you right now. Do you have a message for these people in Toronto?
First of all, I would like to thank people of Canada for supporting Ukraine, for being sympathetic. I would like them to write to each and one of them to write to their MP and ask for no-fly zone. And if no-fly zone is achievable, then to partially cover the skies, or be creative to cover the skies, so that rockets will not kill all the children, and this war, senseless war, will end. And that would be the best that they can help and do.
Alessia, what's your message to Torontonians that might be listening tonight?
I would echo Oksana's call for a no-fly zone or for a safe sky. But I would also add that I know that a lot of people are wanting to help, donating. Some people have reached out to me as well. Where should they donate? I think that we need to also hold charitable organizations to account. If you are donating, ask the questions. Where is this money going? And try to ensure that the regions that are being hit the hardest by this war, especially in the South and in the East, are receiving this aid in a timely manner. It has to be now, not later. So I would start asking those questions as I make my donations.
Alessia and Oksana, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I really appreciate it. This has been a heartbreaking, but also a heartwarming conversation tonight. I really appreciate you participating, and I wish your families stay safe. And please stay in contact. And if there's developments in a week or something like that, I hope you come back and tell us more about what's going on. I really, really, really appreciate it. That's my show for tonight, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. I'm on every Monday through Friday at 6 o'clock on 960 AM. You can stream me online. Actually, I had a couple of people tell me today they streamed me online from Kiev at www.saga960am.ca. Thank you so much. Good night, everybody.
Thank you.